let's take you straight to the Bridget Mabandla Justice College, where SABC News reporter Canny Maphanga is standing by with the very latest. And Canny, we're expecting Richard Shibiri to continue with his testimony, but it seems there might be some breaking news to deal with first surrounding Suleiman Carrim.
Indeed. Good morning to you, Yanda, and to the viewers at home. We are expecting the lawyers of Suleiman Carrim, who is implicated in testimony here before the Madlanga Commission in relation to alleged cartel member Vusimuzi Kat Matlala, and of course the Medicare contract and the alleged kickbacks that would have followed from that SABC contract. It seems, while the details are unsketchy, it seems that something has been submitted, I think a statement from Karim, which would likely affect his scheduled appearance. Now, I'm not sure if it is Monday or if it is the 10th and the 11th, but he is expected next week before the probe. So one would assume that the application that is being brought will likely have to deal with scheduling based on additional information which he may have provided to the Madlanga Commission. We do expect to hear more about that application at 9:30 a.m. But again, yet another phase 2 implicated person bringing another application before the Commission. I think with Suleiman Carrim, we've had quite a few. If it wasn't the court bid that failed, there was then the postponement bid, and then now we're seeing another application after he submitted some form of a statement to the Madlanga Commission. So we'll hear at 9:30 what those details are, but based on the tougher stance and approach that the Madlanga Commission has been taking to those phase 2 implicated persons, it does maybe assist that he is bringing the application on Friday before the testimony is set to take shape next week. However, an application of this nature does have an impact on the scheduling, and due to that regard and the kind of frustrations that we've seen from the Commission's bench about how their schedule has been deeply impacted by phase 2 persons and their postponement bids or their subsequent sick notes, it's not clear what the response will be to that particular application when it appears at 9:30 a.m. first before Shibiri takes back to the stand.
Yeah, and Canny, I suppose it's worth kind of walking our viewer through ways in which Suleiman Carrim had been implicated so far, because as you mentioned, this is not the first challenge, if in fact that's what this application is about, that he'd be bringing before the Madlanga Commission.
Indeed. So Suleiman Carrim, that is that businessman in the Northwest who is said to be affiliated politically with the ANC, and of course is said to have had access to those alleged confidential SABC information pertaining to the payments of the particular tenders or contracts, if you could put it that way, that directly speak to what an interest of Vusimuzi Kat Matlala would have had. Of course, there is the alleged kickback, the payments to the tune of 7 figures that allegedly came from Vusimuzi Kat Matlala to Suleiman Carrim, which raises the question as to what the alleged benefit was. And at that time that he was reaching out to Suleiman Carrim, it was at a time where he was desperate to safeguard his SABC contract and also get the payment for that SABC contract. And we understand that Suleiman Carrim was intricately involved in that particular process, and that Vusimuzi Kat Matlala relied on him heavily to ensure that the payments went through, to the extent that he received those particular payment schedules or internal SABC meeting information systems in order to ensure that that payment went through. So he'll have to answer to those questions, and of course the transactions that the Commission is in possession of, and of course what the WhatsApp exchanges between the pair, that is Suleiman Carrim and Vusimuzi Kat Matlala, that he'll have to answer to and explain in terms of the overall assessment of the alleged infiltration and how it extended to even other business persons and of course affiliations to political parties.
All right, and then at some stage, the Madlanga Commission should hopefully get back to the testimony of Richard Shibiri. It would be his second day on the stand. He's already covered some ground, largely unchallenged as he presented his evidence in chief. I wonder which directions things will take today.
Indeed. Well, Major General Richard Shibiri's testimony is quite interesting with the fact that amongst these phase 2 implicated persons, he's actually the first to admit before the commission that there is some form of a problem or an extent of an infiltration in the criminal justice system, and he includes all of the institutions into it. That is the SABC, NPA, SSA, and other related entities. He admits that it manifests into this phenomenon, which he says is not new. However, the difference with his testimony is that he's quite interested in limiting it not as an institutional problem, but something that relates to just individuals, as something that only vulnerable persons can succumb to. And the difficulty with that particular testimony, Ayanda, is that you have to look at it with reference to the allegations that he's facing right now, because it raises the question as to how can he admit that a problem exists and then try to limit it to low-ranking, if we could put it that way, for lack of a better term, SAPS officials who are vulnerable to that particular kind of influence in the criminal justice system. But he negates the evidence before the commission, which actually shows that these alleged cartel members simply allegedly targeted only the high-ranking SAPS officials because they understood the strength of having those particular associations and how it could shield them. It also raises questions as to how you can see that a problem exists within the criminal justice system and that it's not a new phenomenon, but you try to divorce yourself from that issue and say that it doesn't exist pertaining to you. And this is in light of the evidence that we are seeing that he at least received a payment from Vusimuzi Matlala, whether it was through his son. It was a loan to him, as he describes before the commission. And of course, he is placed in several different events where he is in close proximity to Vusimuzi Matlala. And then, of course, there is conversations that take place with relation to current investigations affecting the Amman Swart murder. And although he offers several denials to the allegations that would paint him as an alleged compromised cop, there is several questions that demand answers regarding the nature of the relationship with alleged cartel member Vusimuzi Matlala, his interest in the investigations into the Amman Swart murder that implicated Katiso Katie Molefe, especially in light of the fact that he was at pains to stress that his role was that of a strategic head, but he directly was involved in trying to find out what the status of those investigations are. And while he does deny knowing Musa Kawula or any of the details surrounding that particular blogger, it seems that in the WhatsApp exchanges, he had a significant interest in Musa Kawula and his subsequent messages or tweets or social media posts about that particular individual. But before we get to that testimony, we're going to have to climb that hurdle of the Karim application first, which the commission will be hearing now. Let's take a listen.